Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 686. And joining me is my co-host, Nathan. Nathan, how are you?
I'm great. There's only one undefeated team in college football. That's your University of Oregon Ducks, number one seed in the college football playoff. Can I complain about the seeding, how we got, the bracket broke down? Maybe. But for right now, I'm just going to kick back. I'm going to enjoy this moment being at the top of the mountain. Because while we're at the top, we're not at the, what do you call that? The peak, what's the word? The summit. We're not at the summit yet, but we're close. We got to keep climbing.
Well, let's talk about it, actually. Oregon beat Penn State 45-37 in the Big Ten title game. I've got a lot to say about it, actually, more than I thought I realized I would have, because there's a specific angle I want to talk about. But more than anything, you're a huge Duck fan. I live in Duck Terry. I live in Portland, Oregon, downtown. We are Oregon people. Tell me about your excitement watching Oregon beat Penn State on Saturday.
Oh, man, I was thrilled.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Use Prize Picks while you watch NFL games this fall, because making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. Prize Picks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay. So put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy.
Of course, being #1 in the nation for, a number of weeks now, having beat Ohio State and seeing how Ohio State performed against Penn State, I felt really comfortable about this game. We score really quick. I'm like, oh, this is easy. They score, then we go down and score again. I was like, okay, we're going to pull away. And every time I thought like we were going to take that, next little step and pull away and make it unmanageable for them, they just kept staying in it. Aller made a number of big plays. Their running back, I mean, if we're being honest, they dominated the line of scrimmage, which is tough to admit. And for an Oregon team and an Oregon front that have been playing so well all year, that was crazy to see. Is just how, two running backs over 100 yards. But man, Dylan Gabriel was great. Didn't turn the ball over, which is huge for him, especially in the red zone. Tez Johnson, how much we missed him in our pass game. Evan Stewart, Trayshawn Holden, Kenyon Sadiq, a guy, just there's so much talent and there's so much speed on this football team on defense and on offense. It was just a lot of fun to watch. I wish it was less anxietous, but at the end of the day, we got the win. We can win track meets.
Do you think Indiana gives them a better game than Penn State did?
Gives Oregon a better game?
Yeah.
No, their front's not strong enough.
So you think Penn State was the team, like they were the best matchup probably for Oregon to give Oregon run for their money?
Yeah, probably them or Ohio State again, just because Ohio State is equally as physical up front, and we saw that in their matchup earlier in the season. Now, Will Howard and Drew Aller, both not spectacular throwing the football, but both at times can make plays. And again, both those teams kind of won up front, but we just have enough skill and enough ability to score the football that ends up being the difference. And then you just a couple of key plays and that interception to close out the game. Oh, it was teach tape. It was flawless. It was perfect. And that's why we love Dan Lanning.
Yeah, Drew Aller throws a deep shot down the right sideline, and it's like I don't know what he saw. I don't really get. I don't get why he's throwing that ball there. I don't really understand.
Not only do I not know what he saw, but how many sideline balls did they complete all game? That many. Somebody can probably fact check me on that. But deep 20 plus yards down the field to the sideline, they didn't complete any of that all game. So to go to that at the end of the game, instead of kind of that, I don't know what you call it, that deep hole, that deep middle hole that can kind of get wide open, like that's where they were having their success with that jacked tight end. I can't remember his name, but the dude was an absolute monster. That's where I would have been looking if I was them. I know that they wanted to maybe save some time on the clock and things like that, but man, just what an insane game. I'm sitting there, I'm screaming, I'm stressed out. I got to worry about fantasy football playoffs on Sunday. It was a weekend.
Yeah.
But go Ducks.
I want to ask about, well, first of all, Drew Aller in general irritates me. Penn State's quarterback. Like I've watched him for 2 years now. He's never once really impressed me. I've been waiting. He had one throw on fourth down a while back. I think in the Ohio State game or some game recently where I was like, wow, like that's a great play. But otherwise, I've been waiting. Maybe it's a Penn State. I don't know what game it was. There was a Penn State game. I'm really like, that's a great throw. He was clutch. Other than that, I've been waiting for Drew Aller to like deliver. And he kind of looks like a whiner on the sideline. He's clearly a limiting factor for this football team. I mean, quarterback always has been. Sean Clifford, all the guys they've had in the James Franklin era, but quarterback's never been the strength of that football team. And it's like, this kid irritates me to no end because this is clearly a great football team held back by a really subpar quarterback at Penn State.
Yeah, you could actually say that for a lot of different teams right now in college football, not just Penn State, but Ohio State certainly held back at quarterback. Georgia held back at quarterback. Like Alabama, I know we talked about Milroe earlier in the year. I said I needed to see more from him to do this on a consistent basis. He was unable to sustain that sort of passing game. Alabama being held back by quarterback. It's just a very, very tough year. And I think as these quarterbacks, start to go from program to program to program, jumping from school to school to school, they rely on their high school tape and what they were ranked coming out. They're losing reps. They're losing time on task, again, with specific guys under a certain system. It doesn't work for everybody to just plug and play. And I think the Ducks have honestly gotten lucky with Bo Nix for 2 years and then Dylan Gabriel, two guys obviously just have that mental processing ability to get familiar with the system very, very quickly. But yeah, like you said, Drew Aller's got a lot of physical tools. He honestly reminds me a lot of Christian Hackenberg from probably 12 years ago at Penn
like
State. Yeah, same deal. Just a lot of physical tools, like that throw that he had late in the fourth quarter, looked like he was going to get sacked, somehow gets it off, sidearm angle, throws a strike for a touchdown. You see that and you're like, oh shit, like this guy's for real. And then you watch him throughout the course of the game, miss a lot of throws, not let it go. He doesn't want to throw guys open, relatively inaccurate. So you're just like, there's something, but there's obviously not enough.
I think Penn State's been bad enough at quarterback for a long period of time. You start to have to wonder, is it the coaching? Like, is coaching holding back? Like, what does Drew Aller look like playing for Lincoln Riley? I don't know, but I'm not entirely certain it's all his fault either, if that makes sense.
Does Drew Aller have any more eligibility?
I believe he's a junior, yeah.
Junior? I mean, what if he did transfer to USC?
Yeah, or anywhere that is just kind of a better passing game. Like, what about Ohio State?
Fair.
What about somewhere that's going to develop him as a quarterback? I want to talk about the college football bracket. Actually, I want to talk about the NFL for sure, but I've heard this thing.
Get that up real quick.
I live in the Northwest for a second. I've lived in the Northwest, and I've heard lots of people talking about, the bracket didn't exactly work out the way we want. So Oregon is going to play the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State, the number 8 seed and the number 9 seed. I don't know that I see this. I understand, I guess, this people saying that. But however, what's better? You play Indiana, Notre Dame? You want to play SMU or Penn State again? You want to play Clemson, Texas? Like, I think Arizona State's in bad shape. They're probably going to play Texas. That's not going to be fun for them. I really believe that. Georgia does get kind of a gift. They're going to play Indiana or Notre Dame. And then Boise State, they're the number 3 seed in the country. They're going to play either Penn State, and that's going to be a really difficult game for them, I think, or SMU. I think Boise State was put in a position where they have a chance at winning. Georgia's got a chance at winning. I don't think Arizona State does. And I think Oregon's going to have a tough game either way. But I understand why they designed it the way they did, because you don't want to have Boise State just play Ohio State, get their ass kicked. Like the way they positioned everything, everyone's kind of got a shot to win something. And I don't know. I think the only thing that would have made better sense is if you mess with the rankings and make Oregon play Notre Dame or Indiana, but that would have been disingenuous. I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about the rankings, because I think Oregon on a neutral site against Ohio State is a great situation for them. And I think Tennessee is interesting. It could beat Oregon, but not a guaranteed. And then also, sorry to go long-winded here, but you look at the bracket, the two best quarterbacks in the bracket left are Quinn Ewers at Texas and Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. And by a lot, in my opinion, like not really close. And I think Nico Iamaleava is somewhere, at third. I don't know. Did Oregon really get screwed? I guess I'm trying to ask. Like, how bad is it they have to play Tennessee or Ohio State?
I've been going back and forth on this about whether or not they got screwed. And to be honest with you, I don't think they did. Is it unfortunate to play Georgia or Tennessee, in that, round before or the quarterfinal? Yeah, but you'll probably have to play them at some point, right? And in the event that an Arizona State, upsets Texas, or even Clemson upsets Texas, and now you got the winner of, Arizona State and Clemson for that next game. Say you get past Ohio State or Georgia. The big thing is you don't have to play. You get a week off.
Yeah.
Right? Like, these guys have to go and play a number of games in a row. You get to sit down. Nobody is hiding anything anymore. There's no hiding things on tape. You are going to see Tennessee and Ohio State in their truest form. They're going to pull out all the tricks, all the stops as necessary to win that football game. And you get to sit down and watch and digest. And if it's a team like Ohio State, okay, what are they doing differently than when we played them earlier this season? And if it's Tennessee, okay, what can they do defensively to stop us? Because at the end of the day, I don't think Tennessee's offense is good enough to challenge Oregon. Like, they can't get in a track meet with Oregon.
Yeah.
And it's proven that Oregon is kind of defense proof. It doesn't really matter who they play this year. They're going to put points up on the board. So
yeah,
I think there's an advantage of, one, you get to watch a familiar team in your conference you've already played. Two, you get to potentially, see and watch a team that is a little bit more limited offensively, but has a strong defense. And again, you're on the couch, you're relaxing, you're chilling. So of all those things kind of factored in, while it's not ideal, again, not having to play and getting to sit back and take some things in, that's a massive win. I don't feel that way for some of the other seeds like Arizona State and Boise State. Like, again, Boise State's resume being that they lost to Oregon, and then Arizona State 10-2 Big 12 conference, but who did you really beat? Like, I get all of that dichotomy, but at the end of the day, you've got to beat these teams to win. It doesn't matter when you play them. If you can't beat them early in the bracket and fresh, you're not going to beat them later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah. What's interesting, there's 4 Big Ten schools in the college football playoff bracket. That's the statement to me.
Football, baby.
Yeah, that's Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon. Oregon being the number 1 seed. Also, on top of this, I think this is worth mentioning. We see. How do I put this? I'm kind of tired of. I live in Duck country. All my coworkers are Oregon Duck fans. I've heard them all day today. Oh, we got screwed. Blah blah blah. It's like, dude, you're entering the college football playoffs. You're going to have to win a tough game or two. It's not going to just. Yeah. No one's going to hand you a national title. No. Sorry, you got to beat a Texas. You got to beat a Georgia. That's how it's going to go. Like, that's how the playoffs were always going to go for you. Like, you were never going to be handed a title. And then on top of that, like, Tennessee and Ohio State are both pretty compromised. I think a game against Ohio State is very advantageous. I don't trust Ohio State at all. Like, their quarterback's a disaster. And I would happily play Ohio State any day if I was Oregon.
Will Howard, to me, has gotten in his own head about his ability to play quarterback. He's not as bad as he's been playing kind of towards the tail end of this season. And that offense certainly has more to unlock. I'm shocked that they don't work harder to run the football, or they're not better at running the football. Again, with the, the 2 running backs that they have, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. I know that they had a left tackle, or they had a key offensive lineman go down against Oregon. I'm not sure if he's returned, but you'd like to see them lean harder on the run game, make that more of a presence. I know that didn't work out against Michigan, but Michigan's got 2 of the best defensive linemen in the country. At that point, you got to know how to, adjust your game plan. I don't see Ohio State playing Ohio State as a disadvantage. Again, they're an 8th seed for a reason. They didn't make it to the conference championship. Did they beat Indiana? Yeah, but they struggled to score points on Penn State, and Oregon ran it up. So the college football playoff is going to be a lot of fun. I could see a world where Clemson does upset Texas, SMU and Penn State. I really don't know. I've got no tape, no film on SMU. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think Notre Dame is better than people think. I know that I called them frauds earlier in the year. I don't. There's something about it, and I don't know if it's because of how handsome Marcus Freeman is. But goodness gracious, if I don't believe in that Notre Dame team, I believe in that Notre Dame team. But if they show up and they wall up Indiana, I have no doubt that they'll hang tight and likely beat Georgia.
I'm not going to lie to you. I think the one thing about Oregon that is difficult to kind of stick with is, to me, it looks like Oregon did get a more difficult path than Georgia. The Game Time app is the best place to find NFL tickets. On the Game Time app, you will find affordable tickets that are easy to buy. And here's what Game Time does for you. Game Time has a Game Time picks feature where this allows for curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and other events. For example, I saw on the app today, Stavros Halkias, my favorite comedian, coming to my hometown Portland in March 2025. I can get tickets to Stavros Halkias, my favorite comedian, on the Game Time app. Or later, whatever, I saw whatever the 6 month, January, February, March, April, May, June. So June, Post Malone is coming through Portland. I could get tickets on the Game Time app to go watch Post Malone in Portland in June 2025. On top of that, they've got all-in pricing, which this feature makes sure that there are no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy your tickets. And Game Time has a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And then on top of all of that, Game Time has ticket coverage where your ticket is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Georgia's going to have to go through Indiana or Notre Dame, and then Boise State or Penn State or SMU. That side of the bracket, the Georgia side of the bracket, is significantly easier than playing Ohio State, Tennessee, or Texas, to me. And I also think Georgia and Texas should have been on the same side of the bracket, in my opinion. So I just think that, like, the numbers make sense, but Oregon should have been on the same side of the bracket as Boise State. And Boise State should have been 4. Oregon should have been 1. Georgia should have been 2, but replacing, you know what I mean? I just think you reshuffle things. It makes more sense to how it feels, but it is what it is. I want to ask you about Boise State because their only loss is by 3 to Oregon. Like, their only loss is to the number 1 team in the country. Now, they're a Mountain West school. They haven't played a ton of people, but that doesn't mean nothing to me. I wonder, like, I'm excited to watch a Boise State team play SMU or Penn State. I think they got a shot to steal a game against a Penn State, especially Penn State, who's got a limited quarterback. I think SMU's a little more capable on the offensive side of the football, actually, to be honest. And then they're going to struggle if they play Georgia. That's just what's going to happen, in my opinion. But I think it's a cool moment where Boise State could win a college football playoff game, and that's a really interesting. If you told me that when I was a kid watching Kellen Moore and Curtis Peterson's Boise State teams, I would have been like over the moon to see them in a position like this, personally.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as far as Boise State goes, yes, they hung tough with Oregon. My problem is Madsen was 17 for 40. And if it wasn't for 2 absolutely massive runs from Ashton Jonty, large in part, they were kind of held in check. And again, Ashton Jonty is a special running back. His ability to get those yards after contact, hit the holes at the right time. He's just got a smoothness to his game. That's going to be tough to defend against. But I just, as great as they are, only 17 points against Wyoming, only 21 points against UNLV. I'm just looking at their schedule here, and I don't want to play they didn't play anybody, they didn't beat anybody card, but a lot of things can happen, early in a college football season. Oregon, I think, probably came out planning to just have a vanilla game script, get in, get out, and things got scary. Wasn't sure what's coming, and we pulled out a victory, right? Not to say I don't have faith in Boise State, but if you're telling me that, some of these other teams can't bottle up Ashton Jonty that are at the top of college football, then I'd be pretty surprised. Like, Jonty will have an opportunity to show us he is truly a worthy Heisman candidate, not just a guy dominating the Mountain West.
Yeah. No, I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens at Boise State. Can I run I don't have a theory by you, but there was a rant by Joey McGuire, who's the Texas Tech head coach. Have you heard of this at all?
No, I haven't.
I want to tell you, I'm going to summarize what he said. It's the gist of it. He kind of said that college football is in a weird place where our view of it is a bit skewed. a Pac-12 school just won the Big Ten, and a Pac-12 school just won the Big 12, and a Big 12 school just lost the SEC title game to Georgia, and an AAC school was playing for the ACC title. Like, my point is, hey, a lot of these, look at where everyone was last year, where they were this year. How bad was the Pac-12 really if the Pac-12 just has two teams winning Power 5 conferences, teams that were Pac-12 schools last year? And how bad was the Big 12 really if one of the Big 12 schools can immediately go to the SEC and get all the way to the title and be number two team in the country for a long time? Like, does that make sense? It's kind of this frustration with these pre-made assumptions about the college football playoff and pre-made assumptions about how hey, it's a Big 12 school, they're not that good. Well, again, a Big 12 school, Texas, just went to the SEC and dominated for most of the year. So how bad really is a Big 12? My point is, Joey McGuire was really frustrated by we have these preconceived notions about all these conferences, and it's just kind of proven to be wrong. Like I said, one more time, the number 1 and number 4 seed in the college football playoff were both in the Pac-12 last year. So it's just a bit silly to me the way that I agree with Joey McGuire that it's kind of silly the way things are given this presumption. What do you make of it? I don't know if I'm going anywhere with that, but I'm curious what you think of that kind of conversation starter.
Yeah. Here's how I see it. Oregon was the top of the Pac-12. Was UW, on a record year, last year? Yes, they were. But they're not traditionally top of the Pac-12. They had 2 years out of the last, however many being really, really great, right? With 2 college football playoff appearances. Again, so University of Washington, USC, Oregon, and UCLA all go to the Big Ten. Who's the only team that had success? Oregon. Texas, Oklahoma, they go to the SEC. Who's the only one that had success? Texas. Yeah, because they were the top of the Big 12 last year. Oklahoma, 6-6, was able to beat Alabama, so it's clear that they're not a completely not-for-naught team, but an SEC schedule was a little bit tougher for them. Now, Arizona State, I think, was just a wild card team that kind of got away with playing a light Big 12 schedule. The Big 12 has a lot of teams that, as we've seen over previous years, they always beat each other. Texas Tech, Kansas State, who am I missing in here?
And, I would also say,
Oklahoma State. Like they've always had teams that just kind of beat up and beat on each other. Colorado was a newcomer this year. Arizona State, newcomer this year. Utah didn't do anything, right? So I think we are overreacting to the cream of the crop of those conferences doing what they do, which is being good at football, just in a different conference. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's really only a couple of teams. And again, this year, with how big the conferences are, there's no divisions in the conferences. It completely changes your path, not just to the conference championship, but now the college football playoff, which opens the door for your Boise States, for your Arizona States.
I do think it's really cool that a team like Oregon can leave the Pac-12, go into the Big Ten, and in 1 year beat Ohio State, Michigan at Michigan, and now Penn State. Like they just passed every boss battle they could have on their way through the Big Ten. They went through all 3 of the biggest Big Ten schools. And how embarrassing is that a bit for the Big Ten? I remember all the trash people were talking about Oregon. Oh, they're not going to belong. Well, they kind of just put it to every single one of the big dogs, quote unquote, in the Big Ten. Yeah. I find it funny. I find it really cool to see that happen. That not everyone did that who went from an old conference to a new one, but I really have enjoyed the run Oregon's been on this year and kind of the statement they made in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and they were a top of the top team last year, right? With Bo Nix, an incredible offensive line as well that started off a little bit weak this year, but started to find some unison as it went on. Like, it's not like, Oregon came from 6th in the Pac-12 to all of a sudden dominating the Big Ten. Like, no, they were already a top team in the country. Dan Lanning reloaded that sucker, got Dylan Gabriel, and they're still great. They're not just going to become horrible by changing conferences. Like, I feel like people are making too big of a deal about conferences when in reality, good football teams are good football teams. Whether that's in the Big Ten or in the SEC or in the Pac-12 RIP, like, good football is good football. I do draw the line about 2 teams into the Big 12, and that was Texas and Oklahoma. Now they're in the SEC. So I don't know, how much better the Big 12 is going to be over the next couple of years. I don't think that any of those state schools can. I don't know if you want to say can compete NIL wise with a lot of these larger programs, but it's going to be tough, right? And Kenny Dillingham's talking about this. Like, I really want to build this program, but what's stopping my dudes from balling out this year and hopping in the portal and going to get $300,000 more dollars to go play football, have more visibility, be on a better team, chance to be a higher draft pick, make more money for my family? Like, it's going to be really, really tough to build those Big 12 programs when you've got these machines of boosters that have already been established. It's just going to take some money and some time.
Yeah. Can we transition to the NFL?
Yeah. Man, how great's college football, though, right now?
Oh,
it's just so infinitely interesting to me right now.
No, I think, actually, you're right. Let's pause for a second and celebrate what is truly like an exciting time in college football. And the bracket, again, I've been hearing Oregon fans all day complain. I look at it and go, that's a lot of great football games.
Whatever.
Again, an Oregon-Ohio State rematch is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Oregon-Texas would be a great football game. The game to get into the national title, Oregon-Texas, would be amazing. I think that Indiana Notre Dame's a great game. SMU's got a chance to beat Penn State. That'll be really fun. Boise State's going to have a shot too. Like, all of it. It all lines up. Say what you want about fair or this or that. Every one of the matchups ahead look like they're going to be good games, except for maybe Arizona State, Texas, to be honest. That's exciting for me. And then maybe Boise State, Georgia would be a blowout too. But like, most of the matchups and potential matchups we see are truly great, interesting football games. And that's what I'm grateful for.
Yeah, same. Absolutely same.
I work in HVAC. I work in a field where Yeah, dude, I go to people's houses. I help them with their furnaces. I do some service work, so I fix furnaces a little bit. I do some work fixing air conditioners. If there's little things I can do here and there, but most of my job is selling HVAC equipment, evaluating and helping you figure out what's next for you. But I've been an HVAC technician, so I've installed, I've done some service. Now I'm in sales. But the reason I'm saying all this is to say that when someone in my own family asks me for help with their HVAC system, it's a big deal to me. I take it really seriously. And I would be really embarrassed if my own company went to my dad's house, for example, and screwed up his system. It'd be like, man, this is the thing you're supposed to be good at, and you're really dropping the ball. You're really not doing what I thought you were good at. I thought this is what your thing, and it's how you treat your own family. That's how it's got to feel. If you screwed up your dad's house, it's a big deal. So if I do family's work or work at my family's house, I take it really seriously.
Yep.
Even though I take every job seriously, it's a little more serious when dealing with family.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, if my dad was a fan of the Atlanta Falcons, and I was, even worse, actually,
this is the craziest loop I've ever seen.
If my wife's dad was a fan of the Atlanta Falcons and I was a Falcons quarterback, I would feel a lot of pressure to make my father-in-law happy. Unfortunately, Kirk Cousins is the HVAC guy who goes to have his company work at his stepdad's house or father-in-law's house and blows up the house. It's like he's gone to Atlanta. His father-in-law's from Atlanta. He's a Falcons quarterback, and it's not going well. He's 6-7. They're not even winning their division. It's terrible. And to make matters worse, this past weekend I watched the Atlanta Falcons play Minnesota, Kirk's former team, where he spent time, like a long time. And they didn't just lose. They got their asses kicked. And even worse, the guy who came out of nowhere this year, Sam Darnold, had like a flawless game. 22 for 28 passing, 347 yards, 5 touchdowns, no turnovers on the day. Sam Darnold looked amazing. Kirk, playing his former team and playing for his father-in-law's team, looked bad. Had multiple interceptions, and it's been a bad year. Like, I just want to acknowledge the real disappointment the Atlanta Falcons are, and it was not highlighted any better than watching Kirk play his former team and get embarrassed by his former team and embarrassed by Sam Darnold, who's not supposed to be very good. He came into this year a total unknown, and in every way you possibly could, outperformed Kirk Cousins head-to-head in a football game. What do you make of what we saw? The Vikings beat the Falcons 42-21 this past weekend. The Falcons are in shambles. Huge win for Minnesota. What do you make of that game? And what do you make of the analogy? Was that kind of out of pocket or kind of fun? Did it make sense?
I didn't understand where you were going at first. Now I totally understand what you're saying. I just lied. I did not totally understand what you were saying, but it made enough sense. The bottom line is Kirk Cousins has never been able to beat good secondaries. It doesn't matter what kind of run support he has. It doesn't matter how well he's throwing the football. Against good secondaries, Kirk Cousins has a tough time. And what do you know? You look at the past couple games and the defenses that he played, the Denver Broncos, the LA Chargers, Minnesota. Like, he played great defenses, two of which have actually good secondaries, being the Chargers and being the Broncos, and one of which with the Minnesota Vikings with Brian Flores disguising and mixing up their coverages, right? Because Kirk Cousins is not a hypermobile guy, he needs to know where he wants to go with the football, and he is known for being efficient, getting it out on time and on target. You make things muddy for him, or the picture isn't totally clear, he's a guy who will tuck the ball and he'll take a lot of unnecessary sacks, or he'll just blatantly miss, right? That's what we've seen from Kirk Cousins over the year. It has nothing to do with anything other than good secondaries. And I would challenge other people to go back and look at the success of Kirk Cousins and when it's come and when it hasn't. I also think that the further that he gets away from Kevin O'Connell, probably the more he is going to regress, right? As you get further away from somebody who is really helping you hone your craft, and somebody's not telling you those little details or giving you those little tips or those things that help you stay at the top of your game, sometimes you just forget, right? It's like golf. Sometimes you just accidentally start a small habit, and before you know it, your entire swing is different. And I think that's what's happening with Kirk Cousins right now. He's regressing from not having Kevin O'Connell with him, and he is struggling to find his form. And I think now he's thinking about finding his form. He's thinking about letting Atlanta down. He's thinking about Michael Penix looking over his shoulder. And that has to be a lot for him, especially as he closes out the rest of the season and their chances of winning the division are just dwindling.
The Falcons are in the NFC South, which I would very comfortably say is the easiest division to win in football.
Oh, it's horrible.
Tampa wins. Tampa leads the division right now by a game with a 7-6 record. It's not exactly stiff competition. Here's where I was getting at, by the way. Kirk said this when he was introduced as a Falcons quarterback, had all these press conferences. He's like, look, my wife is from Atlanta. I visit Atlanta every offseason, and my wife's dad is a Falcons fan. What is family dinner like right now? Like, seriously, it's got to be
Can
brutal.
you imagine?
Every time I watch the Falcons lose, that's what I was saying earlier. Like, how awkward is it to know, hey, dude, you used to love the Falcons. Now you got to watch me play for the Falcons every week, and it's probably painful. Like, how uncomfortable and weird is that? That's a weird position.
Thanksgiving dinner, I bet, was super awkward.
Dude.
Hey, Kirk, just fucking it up for us, aren't you?
Look, they gave Kirk a ton of money to guaranteed all this stuff. I think it's worth considering. I don't know if it's time yet, but I'm starting to see a lot more shots of Michael Penix Jr. sitting there on the bench and starting to wonder, like, do you pull the trigger? Like, because what are you playing? I mean, look, I know you're technically still in the running for the division, but I think it's worse and worse. You're like, man, it's been just, I guess I don't know exactly what to do next. Do you put Penix in? Do you wait a little bit? I don't think I want to rush that, but certainly Kirk Cousins has come to Atlanta, been a total disappointment. And if you told me in January, whenever this move happened, whenever Kirk signed with the Falcons, you told me at this point of the year that they'd be 6-7 and not leading their division, I'd be horrified. I thought it was a guarantee 10-win season, easy path to a maybe even Super Bowl. Like, for real, is what I expected from Atlanta this year.
Yeah.
And it's been an abject failure. And Kirk, frankly, in key moments has thrown some interceptions and really dropped the ball. And it's been not acceptable.
Yeah, I really do wonder if he's struggling in this offense with Zach Robinson and whether or not they're on the same page about how they want to run the offense. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem like they're getting to a lot of things that Kirk is comfortable in. I think, during his last couple years, or his last year and a half, I should say, in Minnesota, Kirk was actually out of the shotgun a lot more than he was under center. Granted, entirely different offenses, different schemes. In Atlanta, you want to be able to highlight Bijan Robinson. Again, another great tandem with him and Algier. I don't think Kyle Pitts is great in the blocking game, and he's certainly, not reliable to be where he needs to be as a receiver. Darnell Mooney is a good target. Drake London's a good target. I'm just curious if this whole offense can't get on the same page. And that's more of what it's about than maybe it's Kirk. So I think maybe Kirk is, again, falling into, how do I want to say this? He's just struggling. He's just struggling in this offense, and I don't think that him and Zach Robinson are on the same page as far as how they want to execute on a game-to-game basis. It doesn't seem like they have a clear identity other than, Bijan Robinson needs to be special.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem. Are we a run first team? Are we a pass first team? We threw it 37 times, but Bijan Robinson also had 22 carries. Like, what are we trying to get after from down to down? What's our first down plan, our second down plan? What are we doing on third and long and third and short? And all of those things to me don't seem clearly defined for the Falcons.
They end the year with the Raiders, the Giants, at Washington, then Carolina. So they could go 10-7. There'd be no more losses. They could also go 9-8. 9-8, I'm not sure you're a playoff team. I think if you go 10-7, you probably win your division. But if you can't win 3 of the next 4, it doesn't matter anyway. If you can't beat the Raiders, the Giants, and Carolina the next 4 games, there's there's already a problem. That's embarrassing, dude. And look at the last couple weeks. They lost the Saints close. They got obliterated by Denver, 38-6. They lost to the Chargers, 17-13. Key pick 6 by Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
And here they get embarrassed by Minnesota. These are bad losses. These are ugly losses that can't happen. And this is a team that lost to Kansas City at one point by 5 points this year. This is a team that's been on the margins at times and recently has not got it done at all.
Yeah, not got it done at all. And I think that up until this last game against the Viking, the bill that we got from Raheem Morris kind of being a great defensive coach started to kind of come to fruition, right? Like Chargers only 17 points. Granted that they don't typically, what do you want to say? Their offense is struggling a little bit this year. You give up 38 to the Broncos, but that's because you're turning the ball over like nobody's business and you can't get anything going offensively. You hold the Saints to 20. You let the Cowboys start, scoring 27. It's just this weird dichotomy of the defense is playing well, but then the offense is just absolutely costing you. You know what I mean? And making it so much harder for this defense to play well.
This has to be acknowledged because I'm the last 4 games is that skid. Saints blowout to Denver, then the Chargers, now Minnesota. Kirk has no touchdowns and 8 interceptions in 4 games.
You're giving the other team the football. Your defense can't play that way.
Do you think they go to switch quarterbacks? Do you have to go to Penix Jr. or do you wait? I don't think you rush that decision. I think you do that. You put Penix in when it makes sense for Michael Penix, not for Kirk Cousins. It's on Penix's timeline, not if that makes sense. But if Penix is solid, do you switch quarterbacks right now or do you wait?
If you have an embarrassing loss against the Raiders, yeah, probably. I think you'd have to, right? Otherwise, Raheem Morris might get fired just for tolerating like a 5-game skid. But no, you stick with Kirk here, and I know that people are obviously calling for Michael Penix, and in the limited time that we did see him in the preseason, he looked pretty solid. But jumping into an NFL season this late, despite how much you've been able to sit and see, it is really, really hard. And again, you're still fighting for a playoff spot with a multi-million-dollar quarterback. If the Browns aren't going to bench Deshaun Watson, the Falcons certainly aren't going to bench Kirk Cousins here.
Well, what's sad is I like Kirk. I do. I think he's a stand-up guy. He's easy to root for. He's like a little engine that could often. Yeah, hell yeah, Kirk, get it. And I unfortunately, like anyone criticizing Kirk Cousins right now is kind of right. I kind of get it. And he hasn't got it done. And he is the reason for all these questions right now in Atlanta. And that's just, that's a product of him playing poorly, to be honest.
And I don't want to keep ragging on Kirk here, but in Kirk's career, has he ever elevated players?
I don't think so. Not really.
Stephon Diggs gets there, right? And Adam Thielen, and those guys go crazy. Adam Thielen in Carolina, especially last year, this year he's been a little bit injured, doing very, very well. Stephon Diggs when he went to Buffalo, and then now with Houston before he got injured, doing very, very well. Justin Jefferson still having a great season. Jordan Addison still having a great season. And now I don't want to say downgrade those weapons that you've had to Drake London and Darnell Mooney, 2 guys that, have some promise, but maybe aren't as talented as those guys. Is Kirk able to get them over the hump? And my honest thought would be just no, because that hasn't been his mantra throughout his career. He's not an elevator of talent. If there's talent there, he's great to maximize it. But I think maybe people jumped too far at Drake London being a first-round guy, Kyle Pitts being a first-round guy. Bijan Robinson is special in his own right at running back, but maybe just the weapons aren't good enough for him to elevate. You give those weapons to Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, like they're eating, but Kirk Cousins to me just doesn't seem like that guy.
Can we talk about the Steelers?
Nope.
Oh,
No, let's talk about the Steelers. Let's have a conversation.
so Pittsburgh's 10-3. They just beat Cleveland 27-14. I think Kirk. Jesus Christ. Russell Wilson, their quarterback. By the way, when you said no, I was sad. I wanted to talk about my team, dude. I was like, man,
Zach's new favorite team.
I knew you were kidding. I was still like, my heart. You probably watched on camera. My heart drops. I'm like, I want to talk about the Steelers. The Steelers beat the Browns 27-14 this past weekend. And once again, it was not Russell Wilson's best game on paper. We can talk about why. There's some reasons, but I thought he made a couple really crucial plays that showed why he's in the position he's in, why he's a perfect quarterback for this team, extending plays. If there were a touchdown of Pratt Fryermuth into a tight window over the middle, and you're like, that's a nice big dump throw. To throw to Scotty Miller, who's back from the grave, by the way. Apparently, Scotty Miller. I didn't realize I'm a Steelers fan. Didn't even know he was on that team. Apparently, he is. He's balling.
Since the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, I have not heard Scotty Miller.
Dude, Pittsburgh is 10-3 and comfortably first in the AFC North. And I think with Russ, looks like a Super Bowl team. I don't have much more to add. I've got one little nugget I could talk about, but before I do that, I want to hear from you about the Steelers. What do you make of them and their 10-3 record and their victory over Cleveland? And by the way, their last loss was to Cleveland in a blizzard, in a night game in prime time. I think that was a unusual circumstance. I think that was, hey, it's a weird game. That's why we lost. Not the norm for Pittsburgh, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I can't remember if it was George Pickens who said, yeah, they just got bailed out by the weather. And it was correct. Like you said, Russell Wilson didn't look spectacular. He made some good plays, but as a team, they dominated that football game. To me, there wasn't really a point where it looked like Cleveland was going to be able to honestly win the football game. Like that Steelers defense is just too good. Offense is doing just enough. I don't think that they ran the ball particularly well, but again, just a few plays that were able to make the difference. As far as the outlook on their record, I'm happy for them. I shouldn't say I'm happy for them. I'm really not happy for them. But here's the deal. They reached 10 wins. And that's so impressive for where I thought they were going to be this year with the quarterback looming problem of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, neither of which I thought were going to work. But now you get into the meat of this of that schedule, right? We talked about the back half over and over again. Now you got the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. The Bengals, you got lucky one time in that I don't know how you scored that many points, but I guess it's the Bengals defense, right? That we might
game
see
was
another
in Cincinnati, by the way.
Right. We might see another game just like that, barring any sort of snow in Pittsburgh. And then you got the Chiefs, Ravens, and Eagles still. Like that's going to be tough. If they come out of that 2-2, I'll feel really good about them. If they lose all four, I'm going to shrug and say, I told you so.
I don't think it's impossible the Steelers are 10-7. Now, I don't think it's likely. I think at least Cincinnati they're fine against. They last time played Cincinnati, Russell Wilson played like a Hall of Fame quarterback on the road in Cincinnati. I'm not too worried about the Bengals game. These next three games, like I look back at the Steelers schedule. They beat Atlanta, struggling week 1. They beat a rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, in his second ever NFL start. They haven't really played anyone all year. Their most impressive victory by far is beating the Ravens 18-16, kicking 6 field goals. And that isn't nothing to me. That's a really good defensive performance. Their second best win is beating Cincinnati on the road and Russell Wilson going off and having his best game in a couple of years. But next 3 weeks, at Philly, at Baltimore, then Kansas City at home is the defining moment for their season. And really where we're going to, if they beat all 3 comfortably or even at all, I think then you got to consider Pittsburgh a Super Bowl contender.
I will say contender.
But that's a big if. That's a really big ask to win all 3 games back to back to back. And if they go 2-1, I'm still probably not sold. I think the only way for them to, I don't know if it sounds crazy to you, but the only way, given that they just haven't really beat anyone all year other than an interesting game against Baltimore, where they were off a little bit, Baltimore was, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I got to see a lot in the next few weeks to believe Pittsburgh's a Super Bowl team.
If there's a team for them to beat here, it's the Eagles. And we're seeing a lot of chatter coming from the Eagles camp right now with, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, and they're butting heads a little bit and things aren't perfect. If there's a game for them to win of those 3, it's that one. Ravens, I think, are going to come back with a vengeance. I'm not saying that they're going to blow them out, but I don't think Lamar is going to have the same performance that he did that last time. They're going to score way more than, what was it, 18 points? They're going to 16 points. They're going to score more than 16 points this time around. Whether or not, the Steelers offense, puts a little bit more together. Again, we're probably going to see a different game. Chiefs, it doesn't matter how good that Pittsburgh Steelers defense is, they're going to find a way to move up and down the field when it matters, get crucial first downs. So the best team in the league on third down. They're going to flip the field, and they're just going to kind of put points on the board. That's what the Chiefs have done all year. Just put enough points on the board to either A, keep it close, or B, keep people at arm's length. So, if there's a team to beat in this lineup here, it's the Eagles. But it'll be really, really tough for them to beat the Ravens twice. That's just hard to beat in a division opponent twice, no matter who you are. And then the Chiefs, obviously, their pedigree and who they are and what they do in those tight games.
I want to carry my baggage with me. George Pickens did not play in this game, Week 14 for the Steelers. He did not play. Mike Williams stepped up, played really well. Scotty Miller did a couple of big catches. Van Jefferson had a touchdown. Like, their receiving core looked fine. And I think they were okay without George Pickens. Now, here's what I want to say. George Pickens is not getting it done off the field in multiple ways. You don't know this, Nathan, and I don't have permission to talk about it too deeply. But a personal friend of mine was deeply wronged by George Pickens recently, inappropriately, frustratingly so. And I need permission to talk about more. And I don't know what I can say and what I can't say, but I got beef with George Pickens. He can eat my ass. I fucking hate George Pickens. I really, really strongly, I really don't like this guy. I don't like how he handled something. I don't like what he did to my friend. I'm really personally offended by George Pickens. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but I really was upset by what happened recently to a friend of mine. That's all I'm going to say for now. I'm thinking about making a more in-depth video or something of that term, but the way George Pickens is handling his business off the field is totally unacceptable, personally. And that's all I'm going to say for now. And I have no problem watching this guy sit on the bench, and I really don't like this guy. And I've never said that very openly, but when you go after people I know in a way that's inappropriate, it really frustrates me. And you and I can talk about this after the show, but I was really upset with George Pickens and not shy about it. I really don't like this guy anymore. And I'm a Steelers fan. I don't like his actions, like the penalties getting he can't seem to go through a game without getting penalties and running his mouth. That's one thing. It's another thing to go after people in their private life. And I find it really unacceptable. And so that's all I'll say for now. But I think it's possible in the next month I make a video. I don't know if it's exposing George Pickens is right. But to some end like that, because his actions are unacceptable to me. And I'm really pissed off about it, actually.
Yeah, I can't speak to anything about George Pickens off the field because I don't know him. But what he does on the field in terms of the extra pushes, shoves, getting people's faces, and in the heat of the moment, right? That's a thing that happens, but it's almost to this point uncontrollable the way he behaves himself on the field. And I could see that translating to off the field. Again, I don't know George Pickens. I'm not going to make any judgments, but what I do see from him on the field, tough to make any arguments for him. What
I will say, you can criticize public figures endlessly, and that's fair, and that's allowed, and that's okay, and that's all I'll say. And if George Pickens doesn't agree with that, go fuck yourself.
Lay it down.
I don't know. We'll talk. It's interesting. You want to talk about Kansas City?
Yeah, let's talk about Kansas City.
I know, that was weird. We watched on Sunday Night Football, Kansas City beat the Chargers 19-17. And it kind of felt like, once again, Kansas City kind of got away with one. They're 12-1. They squeaked by. They barely won another game, but they remain dominant. 12-1 is not nothing. But it's another game where you're like, dang, how did they escape once again? What'd you make of Sunday Night Football?
Just classic Kansas City Chiefs. Keeping the game close, doing exactly what you need to do when you need to do it. Nothing more, nothing less. It's almost like they're clocking in at a 9 to 5. They're not stoked about it. Maybe they're an accountant right now. They're going in, they're doing their work, they're clocking out and going home. Right? They're not doing any extra work. They're not doing anything too much, anything too little. They're saying, hey, I'm doing the bare minimum right now. And I also think that the Chiefs have endured quite a bit this year. They are one of the most injured teams in the NFL, and I don't think that people give them enough credit, especially in their back end, especially the rotation that they've had to have on their offensive line, the change, the in and out that they've had at their skill positions. It's been a tough year for the Kansas City Chiefs as a whole. It's hard to have continuity when you've got new guys in every single week, and I think that people need to give the Chiefs credit for that. I also recognize that the Chiefs kind of caught a break with the Chargers not being great offensively.
Hmm.
Outside of Justin Herbert, they they really don't have anything. You take out Lad McConkey because of the knee injury, and now they really don't have anything. You take out J.K. Dobbins a couple weeks ago; he's on IR. Now they really, really don't have anything. So, um, even with all of those weapons back for Justin Herbert, I think the result here is still the same. That the Chiefs squeak it out because that's just what they do. But again, I'd like to give credit to the Chiefs for managing this season the way they have, given the number of injuries that they've had across their roster, both offensively and defensively. And then the Chargers are just probably still a year and a half, 2 years away from truly, truly challenging the Kansas City Chiefs. Because, I mean, we saw some of those throws that Justin Herbert had to a guy, last name was Smart. It was either 2 R's or 2 T's, a guy I'd never heard of before. But
Yeah.
just throwing dimes. Justin Herbert is so good. He's so good.
You think they're just a receiver away, like one more top guy?
No, I don't think that they're just one receiver away. I think they're a receiver, and if the smart guy turns out to be a capable tight end, I think they're also a functioning tight end away from being a good team.
Stone Smart, a tight end from Old Dominion. Love it, dude. That's awesome. Good for
They
him.
said on broadcast he was a third year guy, second or third year guy.
Year
Yeah,
3.
so he might just be a late blossomer, a late bloomer for his career, right? Kind of coming into his prime and into his own, and maybe fortunate that there have been some injuries, so he's been put in this position. Who knows? Maybe closing out this year and into next year, he ends up being a serious weapon for this team. So they have him. You go out and you sign a guy. I don't think T. Higgins is a perfect fit, but maybe you go out and sign T. Higgins. And then weirdly enough, maybe Keenan Allen comes back too. And now you're looking at Keenan Allen, Lad McConkey, T. Higgins. You'll still have Quentin Johnson. Now all of a sudden you've got some weapons. Probably need another running back. As much as I love Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins can't stay healthy. So they're more than just a great wide receiver away, but a great wide receiver would do a lot for them.
What about Kansas City? Are they still AFC Super Bowl favorite?
Yeah, the AFC feels a little bit weird this year.
It does, right?
Kind of
Like
some teams.
compromised.
Yeah, some teams that we expected to be a little bit more dominant. Honestly, the Bengals, I don't know what happened to their defense. The Ravens just kind of playing a little bit of inconsistent football this year. The emergence of the Steelers, the Texans kind of falling off a little bit this year, not being as great as they were last year. Jaguars, another team we thought I thought the Jaguars were going to have a solid year this year. They've completely fallen off the cliff. So we look at these teams that Miami Dolphins, another team that's endured a lot of injuries. The Jets, like just so much changed, literally from last year to this year. The Bills, of course, I'm forgetting the Bills. So I don't even know what to make of all of it. Because I don't know what to make out of all of it, I have to default to the Kansas City Chiefs.
What do you make of Buffalo losing to the Rams this past weekend, 44-42 at LA?
This is something that I find very interesting because when I talked about earlier in this season, the personnel that the Bills have and the lack of depth from moving on from guys, and then Milano being injured, I believe he's back now. And this rings true now for the Cardinals. The NFL season is very, very long. You may have the personnel to compete for, 10, 11, 12 games, but you start getting to that back half of the season and you don't have guys that you can go to on crucial downs. Guys are tired. They're exhausted. It's been a long season. Your bye week was 5 weeks ago. Like it gets really, really, really tough. And I think that's what we maybe are starting to see here. I'm not going to make too much out of it, but the Rams passed on them all over. And I think it's a little bit of two things. One, I think that the Bills defense is starting to fatigue. And then two, it's the Jekyll and Hyde of the NFC West making its way over, right? you just don't know what team is going to show up, across that division. And they caught the Rams and Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Kyron Williams. They caught them on a hot night, and that was the difference.
Can I tell you something that really stands out when you look at what happened in Buffalo and with LA?
Yeah, yeah,
Stephon Diggs was a great player for the Bills, and they chose not to keep him, move on from him. And I'm sure there's a lot of nuance behind all that, but the truth is, Amari Cooper had 14 targets and had 6 catches for 95 yards. I'm sorry, but if you target Stephon Diggs 14 times, he's going to have more than 6 catches for 95 yards. That's just a fact. It's just a reality to me.
yeah, yeah.
And, the Bills they're 10-3. Like, they haven't had a bad year. They easily comfortably won their division. But they're not a surefire Super Bowl contender, in my opinion. There's a lot of question marks still about Buffalo. And if they had Stephon Diggs and he was healthy, I know he's not healthy right now. If he was healthy, I don't think it's a question that the Bills would be a Super Bowl favorite. And right now, that's up in the air because, again, the Ravens have been inconsistent. KC's 12-1, but that a lot of close losses. Buffalo has been there waiting and has had a chance to really take the AFC by storm and grab control. And they haven't because of moments like this, losing to the Rams 44-42. And again, a game where you target Amari Cooper 14 times and he only has 6 catches. Like, that just wouldn't happen with Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, we talked about earlier in the season, Josh Allen having to be perfect for this team to win week in and week out. He was perfect. Damn near completely perfect. But the Rams were just a little bit better. Again, I'm not going to make too much out of it. I'm still going to give credit to the Bills. Are a better team than I thought, but they've got the Lions up next. And you just played a grueling long one with the Rams, and now Detroit's going to come in and manhandle you. I don't know how that game is going to look, but I can tell you right now, it is going to be a very, very long night for Josh Allen in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to Thursday night. We talked about the Lions. Lions Bills coming up as a huge deal for next week. But on Thursday Night Football last weekend, or this past a couple days ago now, Detroit beat the Packers 34-31. It was a nail biter. Came down to the final play. Mm-hmm. The Lions kick a field goal and win the game as regulation ends. It was actually really awesome to watch. Really fun, really close, really competitive. The takeaway for me is actually that we've seen the Packers play the Lions twice now. And the Packers are 9-4. The losses to Philly, the Vikings, a really good football team, and 2 losses to the Lions. And it's neck and neck, man. Like, They lost to the Lions by 10 and now by 3. I think if the Packers get a third swing at Detroit, they can win. It's kind of like it's almost like when, I don't know if this is a great comparison, but when the Giants played the Patriots in 2017 or whatever year that was, maybe it was 2011. That Patriots team that were undefeated 18-0, and the Giants played him week 17 and almost got him and didn't. And then in the rematch, they got him. I have a hard time believing that given a third shot, the Packers don't bring it a little more to the table and just finish them off. I think there's a shot. That's a great game if they play a third time. I think the Packers are in Super Bowl contention. If this is how close they are to the Detroit Lions, I think we all kind of collectively agree is the best team in the NFL. The Packers can hang with anyone very clearly.
Yeah.
And so I want to I know it's weird to watch them lose and then think higher of them, but like they really are right there neck and neck with Detroit. What do you make of that thought?
Yeah, I think their red zone offense has gotten a lot better. I think their continued focus on utilizing Josh Jacobs, not forcing, Jordan Love to make incredible throws in the red zone has been great for them. The tough part for the Green Bay Packers right now is the drops. They drop a lot of footballs. I'm not sure where exactly they are in the league, but there's a number of times where that's Dontavion Wicks or Christian Watson that they're just dropping the football. They weren't able to get Jordan Reed going, which I thought was very, very strange. But contenders, again, they might be a year away from being a contender, but you're right. There is a world where if they were to play Detroit again, the game would be close again. I think Detroit's got Jared Goff back there, and he was absolutely dealing to everybody. If you take away somebody, he's got somebody. You take away Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got Jameson Williams. You take away Jameson Williams, he's got Sam Laporta. You take away Sam Laporta, all of a sudden now we've seen the reemergence of Tim Patrick. You take away Tim Patrick, all of a sudden you got Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield. Oh, now it's David Montgomery up the middle. They just have so many weapons, and they're such a well-oiled machine. They're battle-tested, they're battle-hardened. Again, I just think it would be really, really tough for Green Bay to win again. Do I think that there's to win if they were to play again? Is it out of the realm of possibility? Absolutely not. but sometimes the team just has your number. And right now, I think Detroit has their number.
This is updated on December 5th. So this is probably a week old information that probably hasn't been updated since NFL Week 14. But as of a couple days ago, December 5th, the Browns had the most drops in the NFL. The second team on that list is the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. And you see it in its wide open first downs. It is free touchdowns, massive, massive swing plays that can absolutely change the course of a game. All you need is one first down, right? This is what Urban Meyer always talked about. Just get a first down and then get your next first down. It's not about going down and trying to score every drive. It's about trying to flip the field and get your field position, right? And those drops on a 3rd and 3 where you decide to pass it, right? And you run that shallow drag. And if you catch it, you've got room to run for 30 plus yards and you drop it. Or you beat a guy over the top and you drop it. Or a minor league contested catch over the middle to the sideline, you drop it. You have to be able to make your quarterback look good. And right now, this receiving core does it at times, but doesn't do it consistently. And that ultimately ends up being the difference in the game for these guys.
I want to transition to Carolina, and I want to do it with a Patreon question. Justin wrote in on Patreon, said, "Yo, HVAC Zach, I haven't written into SOS since week 3, where I declared death to the Panthers organization. Today, I'm here to write in about Bryce Young. As my favorite college player, I was very excited for his potential. I watched him play, start losing his confidence, and get benched. That sucked, and I was very upset. I watched that video of Bryce Young walking to practice, and after him getting benched, a fan asked for his autograph, and he looked totally broken. After watching him run and sling it against the Chiefs, Bucks, and now this past weekend, I felt my excitement for the potential of this team. Minus maybe 4 or 5 of his throws against Kansas City that weren't great. Watch him throw the ball has been a thing of beauty recently. I think he's got it figured out now, and I'm very excited to see where he plays the rest of the year. The Panthers are hopefully able to refocus on building around Bryce Young compared to just trying to get a new quarterback. What do you make of the future of Bryce Young?" So I watched this past weekend. Man, Carolina threw the game-winning touchdown pass against Eagles. I don't know if you watched it.
It was a money ball. It was a money ball.
Xavier Legette drops it. It does hit the turf, but it was like, man, that's the game-winning touchdown. Like, for all intents and purposes, Bryce Young did enough to win that football game in the fourth quarter to beat Philly, a good football team. And I've watched 3 weeks in a row now. He says it. Kansas City, Philly, and I believe what was the first game mentioned. I watched it a couple weeks ago. Tampa Bay, exactly. Tampa Bay. So those 3 games recently have all been neck and neck. Carolina's almost won and has come up just short. What do you make of the recent history of Carolina? Is it encouraging, even though they're losing close games? Like, I think I walk away going, hey, Bryce is getting better and better. And in a weird way, them losing actually helps them get a better draft pick to better support him. So it's not the end of the world. I don't know. What do you make of Carolina right now?
What's the one thing we said we needed to see from Bryce Young this year? He needed to look competent.
Yeah.
He didn't, right? And that's why he got benched.
Yep.
And now he came back and something clicked. It's almost like what we, in not apples to apples here. It's kind of like what we saw with Jordan Love last year, where all of a sudden, not that something clicks, but yeah, something clicks and they just decide, you know what? I just have to let the ball go. Right? He's not holding on to it anymore. He's getting back to, not being afraid to throw it on the run. So I'm not sure if Dave Canales said, hey, like, go out there, you just got to let it fly. Or if he decided when sitting behind Andy Dalton, that he's like, you know what? Like, maybe I'm just holding on to it a little bit long. And I think that's the difference. He stopped caring so much about the result of the play and started playing football. When you start getting under center or taking that snap from shotgun and you're thinking about the first down, and you're not thinking about executing that play, you're already ahead of yourself, it's going to be really, really hard because then you start dropping back. Okay, I know I'm going to have my guy on the stick, so I'm going to hit my drop, I'm going to hitch, I'm going to throw. And when it's not there, you're like, oh shit, that's what I planned on. And now you don't know where to go. You're scrambling, and now all of a sudden you're sacked, right? And now he's hitting his step. He's like, okay, that's not there. Where is it? Okay, can I get out of the pocket? Boom, I'm on the run. Let it fly. And that's what I love to see is just his desire to get after it. And maybe he was a little bit inspired by Caleb Williams or maybe vice versa. But both of those guys looked like they were just holding on to it. And now they're just playing a little bit more carefree. And that's the difference. I don't know what it means for the future. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard, I think, has had an amazing year on the ground for them. Probably want to retain him. And again, they're able to run the football and they're giving him the ball 20 plus times a game. That's awesome to see. Probably still need to be a little bit better in pass protection as a whole. Defense can get better. Could use a legitimate wide receiver one, as great as Thielen is. They're quite a few pieces away, but like you said, it's promising to see this kind of play from him. And yeah, maybe you get a better draft pick. Maybe you go out and get somebody who can make a difference on that offense.
I've never seen a 3-10 fan base happy, but people are encouraged. I mean, I know they lost to Kansas City, Tampa, and Philly the last 3 weeks, but they were all like really close neck and neck games. And games that you told, a month previously, you didn't feel like you would have had a shot to win, and you did. And,
right.
and in fact, you did enough to even beat Philly on the road. The year ends for Carolina against Dallas, Arizona, at Tampa, then at Atlanta. All 4 winnable games. And
I don't know about Tampa. Tampa's going to get healthier.
I think
I agree. First 2, yes. Last 2, I don't think so.
I think you had a shot. I'm not saying it is, and I don't know that you want to win those games. Again, I think draft pick Matt, right? But I'm saying,
what if they re-benched Bryce Young and like, whoa. We actually can't win any games here.
Chill, Bryce.
That'd be hilarious.
Relax, dude. We're trying to get a better draft pick to help you. But I think it's been some promise recently. You play well against Dallas and Arizona, get some momentum. I think you go 2-4 to end the year. You're 5-12? Even if you're, and I don't know that's ideal. Again, the worse draft pick, the better. But I think it's been a really encouraging last couple of weeks for Carolina. And the way these final 4 games play out really are going to impact how decisions are made moving forward in Carolina. And I'm comfortable now at this point committing to Bryce Young for next year.
Is Carolina versus Arizona the shortest quarterback matchup in NFL history?
Probably.
It might be, unless Russell Wilson. Has Russell Wilson actually ever played Kyler Murray? Oh, no.
Absolutely.
Because they're in the same division. What am I talking about?
So that probably is.
I don't know.
But it's cool. But also, Russ is short, but like he's a big dude.
He's broad. He's broad.
Bryce Young looks small. Like he's short and like
looks small is small. Yeah.
I don't think height wise it's probably the shortest quarterback, but it's definitely what if you weighed the quarterbacks? This is the lightest quarterback battle we've ever had. Like the two average weights of the quarterbacks divided by 2. This is the lightest quarterback matchup we've ever had.
I guarantee they're going to show something like that on the broadcast. That all they're going to do is talk about their height. It'll be funny.
Who's the guy? He played for Notre Dame. He won the Heisman Trophy. The really short quarterback. Played for Buffalo and what's his name? I'm blanking on his name right now. They just showed him the other day at the Buffalo Bills game, like hyping up the crowd. His name?
I actually have no idea who you're talking about right now.
Notre Dame Heisman QB. It was what? Maybe it was Boston College.
I was about to say Notre Dame had the what's his name? Brady Quinn, right?
Boston College.
And Brady Quinn was not small.
Boston College Heisman.
I'm not even
QB.
sure if he won it.
Doug Flutie.
Oh, yeah.
Doug Flutie was tiny, right? I bet the truth is the shortest quarterback matchup is some kind of Doug Flutie matchup. Whether it's like Doug Flutie, Drew Brees, or something weird like that. I bet that's it. But man, there's going to be a graphic like something of that. Because that's what they have in common. It's both tiny, these two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
They're gonna pull something interesting.
They're gonna do something like a New York skyscraper, and then they're gonna put it like a blue whale, and then they're gonna do like average human size, and then they're gonna go Bryce Young and Kyler Murray.
Dude, I want to read a question from Jasper, who said, just to get your thoughts, and the context of this is I think the Bengals franchise is wasting Joe Burrow's talent. He says, so I'm not upset. I hope I'm not upsetting anyone by saying Zach Taylor needs to go and get replaced by a defensive-minded head coach like maybe Mike Vrabel. Franchise quarterback Joe Burrow will be just fine without an offensive-minded head coach. What say you, Zach and Nathan? I think the two Mikes got to save Cincinnati. I know they just won on Monday Night Football, but I think Mike Vrabel and Mike McDaniel paired up to save the Bengals franchise is a really interesting idea. Mike Vrabel as head coach, Mike McDaniel in the limited role of offensive coordinator, reporting to Mike Vrabel. It's a match made in heaven, personally. I know we've talked about it before, but do you have any more you want to add on that fun idea, Nathan?
Yeah, I would hate to see Mike McDaniels coaching Joe Burrow. I think offensively they play so different now. I'm sure that they would find a happy medium between what works, but the offense I see in Miami, I would hate to see Joe Burrow throw and play in that kind of offense.
Why?
It's just, to me, it's just not his style. It's not his style of offense.
Yeah, there's no style. I think that Joe fits anywhere, and I think having a running game would help Joe Burrow a lot, honestly.
I don't disagree, but my thing is Joe Burrow's got to take a pay cut, dude. There's no other way to skin the cat here. You are making it so hard to surround yourself with talent when you take up that much money. And is he worth it? Obviously, he's worth it the way he's, putting up the stats. But again, it's not leading to wins. And the problem is you've got Jamar Chase. You're not going to be able to pay T. Higgins. Defensively, you have no back end. Trey Hendrickson and Hubbard are both starting to get a little bit injury prone, missing a game here or there. Trey Hendrickson obviously leading the league in sacks this year. You're not setting yourself up for success. Like, he's no longer the cheap guy that you can surround with a bunch of talent. He's the very, very well paid guy that you have to be very strategic about surrounding him with talent. So you think about the way the Chiefs have built around Patrick Mahomes. It's been draft picks. It's been kind of misfit guys that they've worked on getting in and integrating and maximizing their talent. I don't think Zach Taylor necessarily can do that, right? The talent's being maximized by Joe Burrow out there as a great quarterback. I'm not sure a new head coach changes too much. Obviously, the defense could play better. But again, it's just the defense doesn't have the personnel. And that's, to me, is the biggest issue.
Well, it's also worth asking, does Joe Burrow want to be the highest paid quarterback, or does he want to win games? And you can be a very well-paid quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is a well-paid quarterback, but enough that gives a little bit of breathing room. But right. Joe, do you want to win, or do you want to be paid insanely well? That's really the question. No one's asking you to paid a meager amount. No one's saying you got to be broke and be the Bengals quarterback. But seriously, he's got to ask himself, do you want to win, or do you want to get your ass kicked and have a ton of sit on a pile of money like Smog the Dragon? Right. That's the question you kind of got to ask Joe Burrow.
What a movie reference there. Love that. The Desolation of Smaug. Yeah, we're not asking him to take, 28, 30 million. We're just saying, hey, maybe low 40s. I don't know.
Maybe 45?
Maybe 40. Even that. What's he making right now? 60 and some change?
Yeah, dude.
Even additional $7 million a year, you can grab a guy or two. You can steal a guy for a 1-year contract. You can have some level of cap. Again, I'm not a general manager. I'm not a capologist, but a couple extra bucks here and there can go a long way. Again, not telling them to take a pay cut, but you're already with a conservative franchise that is Cincinnati. They're going to keep moving off of players earlier than they should so that they can keep paying you that money. You paid Jamar Chase. You're paying your two guys who are absolutely excelling this year, but outside of that, you don't have anything, and that's a problem.
You know what I would do if I was Joe? I don't know if this has publicly happened before, but I think it's indirectly happened. I'm not taking a pay cut. What I'm doing is saying, hey, I want to reallocate this money. Because it's my money. I get to choose what we do with it. But I'd rather this money go to
salaries.
No, but I would say, hey, I'll take a pay cut contingent on you're going to get this receiver. Let's go bring this guy in. We'll talk contracts with him. And while we're talking contracts with him, part of his contract is the money's coming from my contract. Something along those lines. Because I'm not parting ways with money and then just going to blindly trust that my front office is going to do right by me. I want some control of that. The way to have control of it. So look, the money's tied to me right now. You want access to it to pay other players, it's got to go through me, and I got to sign off on whatever player you're adding.
That would be interesting if you're able to kind of negotiate it that way.
I think it's happened privately a little bit, just behind closed doors already with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady and there are certain moves very convenient pay cuts made by quarterbacks that align with bringing in a new player. So I think it's happened to some degree behind closed doors.
Right.
But I think that's kind of what's got to happen in Cincinnati's. Hey, we want to pay T. Higgins. How do we do it? And Joe says, well, I'll take $10 million less a year if you give T. Higgins this money.
Right.
But I'm not going to give it up to just trust you to be responsible with it. I want to have some control over what happens with that money.
Right. Did you see the show Suits, or have you seen it?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so there's a top shot lawyer. He makes a lot of money. He's got a secretary that he loves to death.
Mike.
No, Harvey.
No.
Harvey's the guy we're talking about here. Anyways, he's got a secretary, and they're awesome. But you have
Harvey
to watch
Specter.
it to understand. Yes, you got to watch it to understand the context, right?
And Lewis, I know the name Lewis. I'm sorry, I'm derailing this, but
it comes out when his secretary Donna goes to work for Lewis, Lewis didn't realize that Harvey had been paying her an extra salary. So she was getting her payroll salary at the company for her secretary, and then Harvey was essentially bankrolling a larger part of her salary to make it worth her while to stay and do extra things. So then Lewis is like, "Oh yeah, like I can pay a little bit extra. How much is it?" And then it turns out it's a massive amount that Harvey's paying out of pocket. And that's kind of interesting. It would be like Joe Burrow makes a lot of money. He's like, "Okay, I'll pay extra money to have a left tackle." Right? Take a little bit from mine, go get me a left tackle, go get me a right guard, go get me this, go get me that. Interesting. Never thought about it that way.
Well, this is a weird analogy now, but in my job, I make sales. And so I sold a job that was just horrible, like horribly difficult for whoever installer has to install this job. It's in an attic, but got a new hole. It's the worst attic I've ever seen in my life. It's terrible. And so I just out of pocket paid the installers a bonus because I know it sucks and I don't want them to hate me. So like little things like that, things can move around more than people realize. And I just wonder if Joe Burrow does something like that. Like take care of your guys, but you want control where the money goes, not your general manager that you have to then blindly trust.
Yeah, like Liz was busy last night. I was sitting there watching Sunday Night Football. You know those like Ritz crackers that like the sandwich ones, and they come with like 6, like 2, and it's a little right.
Yep.
So I said, hey, she's taking care of something in the bedroom. She's cleaning it up for us. I'm sitting here watching football. I'm going to save those 3 for her because I appreciate the work that she's doing. You know what I mean? Life's all about a little bit of compromise, baby.
Terrible. You're terrible.
But I'm dead serious. I did do that. I saved 3 of them for her.
Good man. Let's talk about the Giants quarterback situation, if we may.
Yeah.
Sid writes in, says 9-32, and then it's this all caps. Do you want me to go into this character or not? Like, how do you want me to read this, Nathan? Do you want
me to read it however your heart desires.
Freedom! The criminal is gone. Danny Crimes, Daniel Jokes, John Mara, Nepo Baby, whatever you want to call him, he is gone. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. On a calmer note, I have 2 takes on what to do next for the Giants. Option 1. Draft either Shedeur Sanders or Cameron Ward. Personally, I like Cameron Ward. Sanders and his family is too flashy and vocal, and we all know Giants ownership does not like that. I haven't watched too much of them, but do you think Travis Hunter makes Sanders look better than he actually is? Question mark. So that's, we go to the drafting a quarterback as option 1 for the Giants. Option 2, do you take the Kings ransom for the top pick and build some offensive line and cornerback depth, which is our biggest need outside of quarterback, and take the demon to act Arch Manning next year and have the draft capital to trade up if we don't have a top pick? I don't think Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen survive that long, which would suck because I do like Daboll and Shane has been a good GM. Yet his biggest 2 moves of Saquon Barkley and McKinney don't look good, but they were replaced with cheap, very good rookies, which is a textbook thing to do as a good general manager. What would you do? So Nathan, the question is, do the Giants trade down in the draft to just build the roster around whatever quarterback they're eventually going to have? Or do they go get a quarterback in the draft? What do you say, man? Do you build around someone? Do you do what maybe is possible too, is just have a lesser quarterback, a Baker Mayfield, a Jameis Winston, a middle of the road quarterback, and just get good help around them? Like at one point, people thought the Lions were doing that with Jared Goff, having a middle of the road quarterback, putting a ton of talent around him. Look where the Lions are right now. They're a Super Bowl favorite and the Super Bowl favorite. What would you do with the Giants if you were the front office guy?
I'm going to go sign Justin Fields. We saw how Brian Daboll was kind of able to help unlock and grow Josh Allen his first couple years in Buffalo. Get him a guy like Justin Fields who is starting to get developed a little bit. He's been able to sit now this year, watch Russell Wilson. You get him in the door, it's going to be a lot of eyes and a lot of publicity. I think it'd be interesting to bring him in. If it works, great, you've got a franchise guy. If it doesn't, great, he's a bridge quarterback, and then you go get Arch Manning. He's not going to be ridiculously expensive. He's going to be loved in the locker room. Everybody knows he's a guy that they love in the locker room. And now you can go shore up your offensive line. You've already got Malik Neighbors, so now you've got him a wide receiver 1. It'd be very, very interesting to go out and get a guy like Justin Fields. If you don't get a guy like Justin Fields that has a little bit more pizzazz, right? Because if you get Justin Fields, there's the potential that he becomes the franchise guy. That's what Pittsburgh thought possibly, right? If you're not going with him, then you go and you get a Not Tyrod Taylor because he's kind of out of the league now, but you go get a Tyrod Taylor type guy. You guarantee yourself a bridge guy, middling, season finish just above or below 500. And then you kind of keep building from there. And then again, go back to the draft and get somebody. But yeah, I would 100% get a guy like Justin Fields or even Sam Darnold, right? Like the Vikings drafted JJ McCarthy because they thought Sam Darnold was going to be just a bridge guy. But are they going to extend Sam Darnold because McCarthy got hurt and now he probably needs a little bit more time to develop? Are they going to let him walk out the door? Like, what's that situation going to look like? So Justin Fields, Sam Darnold. If it's not one of those guys, then yeah, you're looking at a bridge guy. A good bridge guy could even be a guy like Carson Wentz at this point.
I got a lot to say. Number one, Sam Darnold back in New York terrifies me. I don't want that to happen.
We don't want that
the
for
man.
him.
Number two, by the way, Tyrod Taylor is still in New York. He's just with the Jets. He's Aaron Rodgers' backup quarterback.
Is he really? Wow.
Yeah. Number three, though, you're onto something. I think the Justin Fields idea is fucking genius. It actually would maybe have the same effect as what Brock Purdy's had the last couple of years in the 49ers organization, where you've got a really cheap quarterback who can play above the contract value you've given him. And what I would do, I would hedge my bets. I'd give Justin Fields 3 years, 20, 25 million. Because if it goes well, actually, you want to have a couple of years of value. If you give Justin Fields a 1 year, $5 million contract and he turns out to be your franchise quarterback, you got to immediately pay him. So hedge your bets, overpay him a little bit if he's bad. But long term, if he's great, you're underpaying Justin Fields for 2 years. Right. And I love the idea of building your franchise and getting a left tackle, getting a better corner, build your team around whatever quarterback you have. And then allowing a marginal guy, quote unquote, a 7 out of 10 quarterback to be more comfortable and have more help around him. And then you're right. If it doesn't work with Justin Fields, you cut your losses. Probably it'd be 2 years. If you sign a 3-year contract, 2 years, you can get out of there without any dead money. And then you go get an Arch Manning. You'll get someone else. But I agree with you. That's a perfect solution. And it's way better than overpaying like a Derek Carr or so many of the other options they can have. And the truth is, if they go get a rookie quarterback, the kid's going to struggle no matter what because the organization isn't in place.
Yes. That's the big thing. You can go out and you can get Cam Ward, you can get Shedeur Sanders, you can get Quinn Ewers, you can get whoever's coming out of this draft class, right? But are you putting him in the best possible situation? And the answer would be no. Otherwise, you're going to have a really, really rough start to the season. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a Bryce Young situation on your hands where your guy loses so much confidence in that first year that they look like a shell of themselves. Go get a guy like Justin Fields, who's now part of a winning culture. Get him in there with Daboll, a guy who has a history of working well with quarterbacks. Again, even Daniel Jones' first year with Brian Daboll, you're able to see a lot of success. Now, once all of that got on tape, it was clear that Daniel Jones wasn't able to develop. But I am more than confident Brian Daboll could squeeze more out of Justin Fields. And again, now you've got draft capital to not try to trade up or not spend it on an expensive quarterback. Shore up your offensive line. Your defense is honestly fine right now. You've got a more than capable defense. You've got a great front seven. Get yourself shored up on the offensive line. Get yourself, another offensive weapon. Tyrone Tracy turns out he's going to be a great running back. They're not too far away, but the last thing I want to see them do is jump into the deep end with a brand new flashy quarterback because that's not what they need to do right now. Just bridge it for a year, look more than capable, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't, get yourself something different in the draft.
Well, also, by the way, you say you don't want to go get a flashy quarterback, but Justin Fields could be a flashy quarterback. Like, he's actually insanely talented.
I should say a flashy quarterback from the draft.
I know. I get what you're saying. No, I'm just saying, like, as far as available quarterbacks next year, like compared to drafting Shedeur Sanders or Justin Fields, who's more talented? Actually, like for real, honestly, like that's a toss up to me, talent wise.
I don't know.
I think Cam Ward's more special than Justin Fields in his current state, but like. I think Justin Fields is no slouch. Like, we're not talking about Christian Hackenberg or Drew Lock or some guy who's just a statue that can't make plays. Like, this is a playmaking, really, really versatile quarterback.
Yeah, like, I don't even want to see them, like, this year, I don't even want to see them draft, like, Carson Beck in the 3rd or 4th round or even a guy like Nussmeier.
It's a wasted pick, too, by the way. Like,
yes, like, just go in, get yourself a guy like Justin Fields, keep Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito as your backups. Doesn't really matter. I don't really give a shit. And then just go from there. But please don't don't outthink the room here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Will
And
says
it's not to say that those guys can't be special who are in the draft right now, but I don't think that that's what the Giants need.
No, I totally agree. They need to build the organization. They need to build their foundation around whatever quarterback they have.
Yeah, go get yourself a Joe Alt.
Will says, hey, HVAC, Zach and Nathan. The Texans look out of sync, particularly on offense. Can you think of any in-season adjustments they can make? Or is this Houston Texans team destined to win a bad division and get blown out by a team like the Ravens or Chargers on the wild card round? I think they are destined to lose in the first round. Maybe they could beat a Pittsburgh. What do you make of that, Nathan?
I've had a hard time with the Texans this year. I think some of it was due to injury this year. But yeah, I don't know what to make of them. I think the tough part is CJ Stroud kind of missing a few more throws that he was making last year. And that's large in part been the difference. I think the defense is playing about on par with how it did last year. Obviously, losing Stephon Diggs hurts. Losing Nico Collins for a number of weeks hurt. And I know that he's not 100% healthy yet. Tank Dell coming off the busted leg, and you're really leaning heavy on Joe Mixon. I don't know. All it takes is for Fields to not Fields.
CJ Stroud.
For CJ Stroud just to start seeing the field a little bit better again, and maybe on this week off that they've had, they're able to find it. But we'll see.
If the playoffs started today, Houston will play Baltimore in the wild card round, and it's a given they're going to lose, in my opinion.
I don't think it's a given that they're going to lose. I don't.
Interesting.
Yeah, again, we know that the Ravens have kind of had a weakness on that back end. If there was an opportunity for CJ Stroud to get hot at the right time, be that big time, big game quarterback that we've known him from since being at Ohio State, like, I wouldn't say it's a given. I think that they are just above average enough to give a lot of teams in the AFC a problem this year. In the NFC, I don't think that would be the case. I think they would get ran over by the likes of Detroit or Green Bay, etc. Yeah, I think they're going to, if they can win the division and just hang on, they're going to be fine, which I'm sure that they'll do. And then again, if CJ Stroud, if just something just clicks for him, just something he's able to find whatever it is, they're going to be just fine.
Here's a really fun one. And we'll make this our last question before we talk about next week. T-Bone writes in, says, hey, Zach and Nathan, I need your help. I'm heading to America next year with a few friends next November for about a month from Australia. We have planned a West Coast road trip starting in San Francisco, where Nathan lives, heading down to Los Angeles. We'll also be flying and visiting Vegas and flying to Miami, then Washington, Philly, and staying in New York for Christmas. Do you have any recommendations of things to do in those cities and any other cities we should visit? We are thinking about Chicago, Nashville, or New Orleans. Any advice would be appreciated by you. Nathan, that's a tall ask, because that's
a lot of destinations. I love that. I'm so excited for you guys to go on that trip. That's about to be awesome.
San Francisco, LA, Washington. So Vegas, San Francisco, LA, Washington, New York City, Philly, and Miami. I mean, dude, I don't think you can go wrong, to be honest, visiting any of those places. Like, I'm curious, Nathan, like, I think you got to go to Times Square. You got to go to Central Park. It sounds like you're a football fan. If you're listening to this podcast, there's no way you don't like football to some degree.
Yeah.
You're going to be in America in November. You should find a way to go to a game. You're from Australia. I don't think you've ever been to an American football game, at least not to like what the NFL can provide. Go to an American football game. That's my recommendation. You're in all these NFL cities. Find a way. Find the cheapest game on your trip. I don't care.
Or even a college game.
Football game. Yeah.
Or even a college game.
You're adjacent to so many cool football stadiums. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I wish I could give better advice on San Francisco. I just got here. But no, there's a lot of cool things that you can do, whether that's kind of the touristy side of, Golden Gate Bridge. Christie Fields is a beautiful park. Alta Plaza is a beautiful park. The Golden Gate Bridge itself, and just north up in the woods, there's some great areas to go. You could go about an hour north of the city and go do some wine tasting if you guys were into that. Up in Napa, some beautiful areas. You can go a little bit further south into Santa Clara. into San Jose area, maybe see some of the tech hubs if you care about that kind of stuff. I really don't know, but I can certainly, if you're not coming until next November, I can certainly do more digging for you and put together a nice little itinerary. So actually, I think I'm going to do that.
Well, what's crazy is there's actually you're going to so many places. There's like an infinite amount of options. Like, do you want to go to Disneyland for a day? That's possible. I
Right.
would say if you're going to go from San Francisco to LA, and Lionart wrote this in the comments on Patreon, he recommends instead of taking I-5 from San Francisco to LA, take Highway 101 down the California coast. And I completely recommend, if you're going to take a road trip and you got time, take the slightly longer scenic drive down the coast of the West Coast instead of down I-5 through the middle of California, because it's going to be way prettier and way more interesting to look at, and just a way cooler way to see the country. If you can go to the Florida Keys, even just the first couple,
Ooh, the Keys would be sick.
if you got a car, do that. So that's something. I don't know how much money these guys have. I couldn't afford a trip like this for a month, taking off work, going to all these big
No
cities.
way.
Seems like they got a lot of cash floating around that they've got access to. Football game, some nature. I think I need more time to think on it too. But like the Florida Keys come to mind. A day or two at Disney World land would be pretty incredible.
Definitely do Disney World if you're in Miami, and then got to make your trip down to Orlando to do that. But go to Epcot down there.
But
Awesome.
I think there actually will be a high speed rail from Miami to Orlando, up to Orlando by that point. So that's interesting. I think that's in the works actually, like a year from now. That's kind of interesting. Well, you know Vegas better than I do, Nathan. What would you do in Vegas? You're from Australia. I mean, Vegas is a dangerous town. And by the way, here's my number one recommendation for Vegas. Don't stay too long. Like, make it 3 days tops. Do not hang out that longer than 3 days is exhausting and uncomfortable and weird. I was there for 2 weeks one time. It was far too long to
3
be in
days.
Vegas.
2 nights is usually the best way to go. You get 3 days, you get there early that one day, but 2 nights, you start saying more than that, it gets it gets
weird.
ugly. It gets ugly. It gets weird. But all this, there's so much you can do in Vegas. It really is there's something for everybody. I'll put it that way. The Wynn is a great place. Caesar's Palace is awesome. There's so many different shows that you can go to. Go see the Jabberwockies. Go see Blue Man Group. Go see Cirque du Soleil. Hop off the main strip that's in Vegas. Go out to Fremont Street. It's a little bit more like bar hop, bar crawl friendly, more traditional, pubs, if you want to call them that. I don't know what they call them in Australia. But yeah, a lot of a lot of cool stuff you can do.
They probably call them like watering holes or some bullshit in Australia.
From the outback, Mike.
What I will say, it's clear T-Bone's a city boy, right? Because if I were coming to America from Australia, I'd be like, where can I go backpacking? Where can I go camping? Where's the cool nature shit? Like, none of the stuff he said made me think of nature. Vegas, no nature. New York City, not exactly nature. San Francisco, LA. Like, I don't think he's looking to do the things that I would personally do. Because I did travel the country in my truck, and I backpacked to the Grand Canyon. I camped all over the place.
That's so sick.
I don't know that's what he wants to do.
Did you see any aliens in the Grand Canyon?
No, dude, it was a blizzard, actually. It was really cold when I was there. Like, it was because I was there in the summer, and then I went a second time on the end of my trip. I did a big loop. On the way back, it was actually, I didn't realize how much of Arizona is like elevated, like up on a plateau.
Yeah, in Flagstaff up there, it gets up high.
Dude, it's cold. I was driving to a blizzard. It was super snowy in Arizona. I was like, I didn't even know this was here. It was sick. I loved it.
Yeah. How long ago was this? This was probably, 12 years ago at this point. My oldest sibling was visiting Northern Arizona, and we road tripped from Portland, Oregon, all the way down to Northern Arizona. And I kid you not, like, same deal. And this was in the spring, mind you. All of a sudden, it just started dumping snow while we're driving out of nowhere. It was insane. And then we just see this mountain lion just walk across the street as we're driving. It stops. It looks us dead in the eye and then just keeps walking. The longest, most slender, beautiful mountain lion you've ever seen. You were just like, unbelievable. Yeah, so much nature. It's really, really cool up there in that northern part of Arizona.
I do want to say weird recommendation that I don't think is going to be very common, but my personal favorite place in America, in the lower 48, that's not Hawaii, is San Luis Obispo, which is between San Francisco and Los Angeles, down Highway 101. I don't think that's a very common opinion, right? If you are from Australia looking for Chicago and Vegas and LA and Miami, it looks like you're looking for big towns. But to me, the most beautiful, green, temperate, incredible beach town in the entire lower 48 is San Luis Obispo. Technically, it's Pismo Beach, which is like 10 minutes from San Luis Obispo. It's a little college town in the mountains. It is, you're right, hell expensive, but it's the most beautiful. Like if I was a millionaire, I would live there tomorrow on 2 acres. I would kill to live in Pismo Beach, San
I don't
Luis
even
Obispo
think you
area.
can get 2 acres out there anymore.
Probably not. But it's, I mean, I spent a month there in my truck, and it was one of the happiest months of my life. It was beautiful. It was fun. That's like old school, small town California, and one of the few places like that left on the California coast. And it's, again, I don't know if that fits what he's looking for, but to me personally, like I loved it there so much.
Yeah, right back in. Tell us a little bit more about what you and the fellas are up to and what you guys like to get into, and we can give you a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I totally love that. Nathan, you want to look ahead to next week?
Yeah, let's look at next week.
We got a banger of a game on Thursday Night Football. The Rams play at the 49ers, the 7-6 Rams against the 6-7 49ers. That's Thursday Night Football on Amazon. That's going to be awesome. Honestly, I think that's a great game. I don't know who's going to win. What say you?
Oh, man. Niners looked really good. Rams looked really good. Rams kind of had to go a little bit more to the wire. Maybe they were a little bit more fatigued and beat up. Niners maybe finding some momentum, but then again, now they've lost, maybe have lost Isaac Guerrero. He was questionable to return to the game. I'm not sure what his injury status is. Again, playing on that short week is going to be tough. I think because San Francisco didn't quite have to go through that, grueling sort of, grinded out maximum effort to kind of win that game. They might have a leg up here, and it's at home. So granted, LA to San Francisco, it's only a couple of hours, but even just that extra day or two at home can make all the difference in the world, especially on these short weeks.
There are 3. I don't know that the morning games, the Sunday early games are that great. Personally, like I look around, I see like, I don't know, man.
New York and Jacksonville.
Yeah, like, yay, great. But to me, the afternoon games are incredible. And I can't believe, like, there are 3 games I have to watch all at the same time on split screen. It's going to be a mess. Like, Bills at Lions, 1:25 p.m. West Coast time. Incredible game. That's maybe the Super Bowl preview, by the way. Like, that actually could be the Super Bowl we watch in February is Bills-Lions.
Lions will dog walk them.
Probably. Same time as that game happens, you've got Steelers-Eagles. Both, Steelers are 10-3, Phillies 11-2. It's a Pennsylvania rivalry, by the way. They're cross-state rivals. I don't know what happens there. It's a huge prove-it game for Pittsburgh, in my opinion. What say you?
Isn't it weird that Pennsylvania just has 2 NFL teams?
Pennsylvania's a crazy state. I mean, it's like
it's a big state.
Pennsylvania's half on the West and half on the East Coast, and it borders like 6. It borders New Jersey, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, New York, Canada. Like Pennsylvania is the most diverse, insane state in the lower 48. It's kind of crazy.
You've got some old city vibe with Philadelphia. You've got some like Midwest city vibe. Obviously, once you move a little bit more towards the Great Lakes, anyways, I have no idea what to expect for this game. If there is a difference, the difference is going to come down to coaching, and I trust Mike Tomlin more than I do Nick Sirianni. So if the Eagles can't out-roster and can't out-talent the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it comes down to a game of wits and truly a chess match, then I'd take the Steelers to win that football game.
Does Pittsburgh have a better quarterback in Russell Wilson compared to Jalen Hurts? And I think they play very similar at this stage in Russell Wilson's career.
That's actually an excellent question.
I don't know. They're like kind of the same quarterback, weirdly enough.
I think Russ has... Yeah, I don't know. I really do not know how to answer that question.
Do you lean towards Russ being better? Do you lean Russ is better than Jalen Hurts slightly?
I think Russ is a better thrower of the football as a whole. I just think Jalen right now at his age is better with his legs than Russ is. But again, I still think that ever since that injury to his shoulder, I don't think Jalen Hurts has been the same throwing the football. And I'm feeling a very Cam Newton vibe where he might age out really, really quickly of the NFL if it just doesn't start working. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I trust Mike Tomlin more so than I do Nick Sirianni to make the best possible decisions to win the football game. Take points when you need to take points. Go for it on 4th down when you need to go for it. Punt it when you need to. I trust that.
So Bills-Lions is happening the same time as Steelers-Eagles. Also at the same time, my third screen happening on NFL, was it, what do they call it? Game Pass, I guess. I'm going to have to watch
Sunday
Tampa
ticket.
Sunday Ticket. Thank you. I don't know what it is. I think you're right. It is Sunday. Anyway, I'm also going to have Buccaneers Chargers on 7-6 Buccaneers leading their division against 8-5 Chargers. That feels like a great game too. What say you?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the health that we're going to get from Justin Herbert, who was banged up in that game against the Chiefs,
Yep.
whether Ladd McConkey's playing, and what you can get out of the run game. I do think that Tampa Bay is, I don't want to say this team might be their kryptonite as far as the way the Chargers defense is structured. You have guys that are more than capable of covering Mike Evans, and then outside of that, there's no one really special on that receiving core. Baker Mayfield's throwing the ball really well right now. It just depends on how that running back tandem of Rashad White and Bucky Irving get going. I do think that Tampa Bay honestly wins decently handily, just because I don't think that the Chargers are going to be able to produce enough offense, and we know that Baker's going to light it up.
Do you think Steelers Eagles is the best game in that window? Bills Lions, Steelers Eagles, Buccaneers Chargers. Is that the one game that, like, you had to pick one of those three? Is that the one you'd watch?
No, just because I don't like their two styles of football. It's the most interesting game in terms of what it's going to say about the NFC and the AFC and kind of what we expect from those two teams in particular. But to me, the most fun game is going to be watching the Lions against Josh Allen. I'm not even going to say against the Bills. It's the Lions against Josh Allen. Who's going to win that game? And again, Josh is capable of making, individual efforts that can win games, but that's going to be really, really tough.
Sunday Night Football is really interesting. I think it'd be a playoff game, actually. So if the playoffs started today,
isn't there 2 games this week?
That's Monday night. Sunday night.
Oh, Sunday night.
If the playoffs started today, Seattle would host Green Bay in the wild card round. We're going to see that on Sunday Night Football. Seattle will host Green Bay like they might in a playoff game. The 9-4 Packers at the 8-5 Seahawks. I think the Packers win, but I think it's interesting. I think what's interesting is a matchup of Matt LaFleur's offensive acumen as head coach of the Packers against Mike McDonald's defensive acumen as the Seahawks defensive head coach. It's going to be a really interesting matchup. What do you think of that game? I think it's actually probably a great Sunday night game, to be honest, even though it's not the most interesting teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I do think that the Packers win this game. And I don't want to say handily, but as great as the Seahawks have been kind of on this, resurgence of their team, this 4-game win streak, they've kind of beat a less than great Cardinals team, although they are, okay. They beat the Jets. Oh, yeah, Cardinals twice, and then a really down bad Niners team. So I don't really know what to make of the Seahawks right now. But one thing I do know is that the Green Bay Packers just hung tough with the Lions, which leads me to believe they're going to have no problems with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
But then again, the Seattle Seahawks also, gave Detroit, their money's worth a couple of weeks ago. Not a couple of weeks ago. This was much earlier in the season. But in a standalone football game, and if the offense can get going for Seattle, that'll be interesting. But like we said, I think last week, I don't trust Ryan Grubb. So I think, Green Bay.
Yeah, I think coaching across the board with Jeff Hafley and Matt LaFleur, they've got an advantage over Seattle, as well as probably a talent advantage too.
Definitely a talent advantage.
Monday night's got 2 games, Bears at Vikings. I'm not that excited. I think the Vikings dominate that. And then Falcons at Raiders is the later Monday night game. I think that's interesting because I think Kirk Cousins, the Vikings quarterback, or so the Falcons quarterback now, is playing for his career at this point. Like, just he's got to have a good game on Monday night. What do you make of Monday night? Either of those 2 games interest you? Bears, Vikings, or Falcons, Raiders?
Yeah, I think Bears, Vikings is interesting to me just because the Bears are kind of an enigma this year. They showed up and looked really good. They've showed up and looked really bad. What team is going to show up here against Minnesota? The hardest team to game plan against is a team that you don't know what their game plan is going to be. Obviously they don't have Matt Eberflus, and it's Thomas Brown. I don't know. I honestly, I feel really bad for not remembering his name. I do too,
but you've cut the head off the snake so many times in Chicago. I can't even keep up with who's at the top anymore.
Yeah, so it can be really, really hard to game plan against a team where you're not entirely sure on what they are going to come out with.
Thomas Brown.
It might be interesting for a moment, but I think overwhelmingly this Brian Flores defense is going to make it really, really hard on Caleb Williams. And what was their result earlier this year? Yeah, it was a close game earlier this year, 30-27 a couple weeks ago. Um, yeah, again, you fired Matt Eberflus now. What does this team look like?
Thomas Brown played in college at Georgia with Matthew Stafford.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
And
interesting.
Matthew Stafford's still balling.
Yeah, that's
And
wild.
Thomas Brown was with the Rams at one point. That is interesting.
Now they overlap. He left in 2007. Stafford didn't leave Georgia until 2009, but there was a bit of overlap there. That's fascinating. Let's end with this. I don't care about this, but I want to acknowledge that it's happening. I feel bad that I don't care, but I'm not going to watch it, and I don't care that it's happening. Navy plays Army, so it's the Army-Navy game. 8-3 Navy against the 11-1, 22-ranked Army team. Whoever is interested in that game is going to love it. It'll be a cool event. It's the only college football game happening this weekend, and to those that like that, great. I don't personally. I just got so much going on in my own life. I don't really care to watch that game. But if you want to watch that, it's going to be a fun game, I'm sure. And I salute to those who enjoy that matchup.
Yeah, it's football. Might have it on in the background, making dinner, doing something else. But no, and again, no disrespect to those guys. It's just not a game that I've watched, and there's no storylines, to draw me into it.
But it's a noon game on Saturday and the only one. So I'm sure it'll get great ratings just by being the fact that it's the only thing happening on a Saturday.
Yeah. Also, I'm thinking about the college football playoff, right?
Yeah.
Re-looping how we're going to end this. How advantageous is that bye if everybody kind of gets a bye right now before it starts?
Yeah, it's actually 2 weeks off.
Yeah. So it's a nice 2 weeks, though. What am I talking about? They're going to enjoy that.
I guess, but it is certainly less of an advantage because everyone gets a break.
Everyone gets a little bit of a break, and then you always come back a little bit rusty. And if you're a team like Tennessee, you just won, like you want to stay hot, you're going to come out firing versus Oregon, like, whew, all right, got to shake off some rust. How do we play football again? But I trust Dan. Dan's got our back.
Sure. Dan's got, and Dan we trust. Dude, let's end here, man. I love Dan Lanning a lot. I'm not an Oregon fan. I've lived in Oregon most of my life. I'm very decidedly not a Ducks fan. I'm a Dan Lanning fan. I really love him. If he left Oregon, I would root for him somewhere else. I really like what he's built and the way he does his business. And I will always root for Dan Lanning. He seems like an awesome guy and an awesome coach.
He's a great motivator. Every single week I see the University of Oregon's, whatever his mantra is for the week to kind of get the team ready. And then at some point during the game, that kind of mantra comes to life. And just he's great at it. He comes from the Saban tree. He's worked with Saban. He's worked with Kirby Smart. So he's seen and worked with the best. He knows what the best looks like. And I think that's why people appreciate him in Eugene.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. Well, great show today. That was really fun. I don't know. Good job, man.
Thank you, man. It was a great time.
Guys, that's all we got. Thanks for your time, everyone. Bam. We are